guys, Jessie G here. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to today's episode of Jessie's Hangout, and also welcome back to my show, Jessie's Hangout. um, this episode is going to be an update about the Shannan and excuse me, much apologies, hiccups, about the Shannan and Chris Watts case. Um, I did this case about 3 weeks ago when I was doing the true crime series. That was really interesting, and I will say I did have a lot of fun doing the other three, but the Shannan Chris Watts case, that was kind of like a case like the Cecil Hotel and the keepers. It was just a really tragic, touching case. Um, the reason for me doing an update on this one is because I got to fully listen to the whole interviews and fully just kind of just totally paint the picture of the whole thing. Um, I know I did just kind of mention that, I just told the story and told a little bit about them, but this sheds a little bit more light on the matter. But before I totally get into it, I want to read off a disclaimer and two warnings. You already seen them flash on your screen, but I'm gonna go ahead and read them off again so that way you have a chance to do what you need to do at your own discretion. Okay. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be interfering. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. If you are triggered or sensitive by any of the topics that are going to be talked about in today's episode, I highly recommend you don't listen to today's episode. But if you do choose to listen to today's episode at your own discretion, I highly recommend you do it with an emotional support system or somebody that you can sit down with and, listen to this with. So if there's like a sensitive or touchy subject, you can get through it with somebody with you, and because you just never know if somebody's going through this sort of situation, and you know that there might be some things that might be a bit triggering and a bit sensitive. Also, if you're under the age of 18, this is not an episode for you guys to listen to. Sorry, but it isn't one of those episodes that are for minor ears. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode. First things first, I want to talk about Chris Watts' interview. You could definitely tell that he was trying to definitely do what I said. It was almost as if he was trying to tell himself that I could kill this person and tell myself that somebody else did this and believe it and make other people believe it and get away with it. That was kind of how I was thinking then and still am thinking now. He did show a bit of emotion in he did show some emotions in his interview or his interrogation when he fully confessed. But it was kind of mixed emotions for me because I can't really be totally 100% sure if it was because of the fact that he got caught and he knew that his life was over and that he was going to be spending it behind bars, or if it was just for the fact that he annihilated his whole family and he felt some remorse for it. I don't really know. I couldn't tell you with that part. That's why it was just such mixed emotions with that part. I did get to see a little bit more of the questions that were said or asked to Chris Watts when the lie detector test was taken. Excuse me, sorry about that. And the questions that were given to him even after the lie detector test. You could tell that he did tell her that he was nervous about that. So you could definitely tell that there was something going on because you don't mention that you're nervous about something nobody who's taken a lie detector test who's either innocent or guilty has ever been nervous for that. Or if they have, they just never said it because they know that if they said it, it would be even more fishy. And that's what I found fishy about this situation. So that was a little bit more about that, but I definitely got to hear the full thing, and I definitely stood by what I said when I said in the other two, the first two parts of my crime series. I totally stand by that. Um, there was another one that I wanted to talk about. In case interview. I still stand by what I said on that one. Some of it, there was some of it that I didn't know about, which was the phone where she handed him a phone that had a bunch of contacts in it. But it was like one of those phones that just didn't have all the stuff off of it, but they could still track and do what they needed to do with it. And she showed so much concern for that phone, and then she was telling them about the fact that Chris had two phones, a work phone and his normal phone, that they were talking on his work phone when they shouldn't have been, and then they went to his phone, and then she talked about um, the fact that she didn't remember Chris's number, and then she refused to see it to confirm that that was his number. It was like, you were in there to try to talk to them, to try to tell them what they needed to hear, but you refused to do that. That was a little bit fishy to me. And then there was the part where she said she felt really uncomfortable about going to his house, and she was only there twice because it was weird because it wasn't her space, and that's, in a way, that's understandable, but in a way I found it kind of a load of crap, because it was like, if you felt that uncomfortable about the whole situation and about being there, you could have been the adult and walked out of it. But instead, she still continued to be with Chris even after the murders happened. Whether she was under the intention or not, it didn't matter. She stayed with him. And she continued and allowed this relationship, this affair to happen. And if she said that nothing sexual happened, I find that hard to believe, because the pictures and everything tell a whole different story. They tell a whole nother situation if you want to know the truth. Um, so that's how I feel about that still. The newest things that I'm really going to go into, and it might make this series long, was the letters that Sydney Watts and Sandy Russick, or however you say her last name. I'm not very good with names. Much apologies for that. Um, the letters that they sent, Shannan's mom kind of talked about, Shannan's struggles over the years, how much of a hard worker she was, how much of a bright, loving person she was, and, just talked about, you know, her love for just wanting to try to make milestones, even despite the fact that she was diagnosed with lupus. And, the fact that she didn't let that stop her from doing what she did. And that the first marriage that she was in that crashed didn't stop her from getting up and brushing herself off and keep going, even though it hurt, even though it was a bunch of emotions. She still did what she did to make herself happy and to do what she needed to do to be happy. Um, but she also kind of painted the picture of how they met Chris's parents, and what Chris's mama thought about Shannan and why she didn't like Shannan. Um, this is one thing that I know from personal experience. This is one thing that you never ever say to a person or a family member that you are just now meeting. This is just some things you just do not say. She was sitting there talking to Shannan's mother. Chris's mother was talking to her, and she had made this comment of saying that she didn't see the connection or the attraction between her son and Shannan. And um, Shannan's mom was kind of like, this was kind of sort of what was saying, was like, what would you mean type thing. And it was just like, she doesn't see, doesn't look like Shanann really loves Chris. And that wasn't the case. And of course, that bitterness turned into Chris's mom not liking Shanann at all. And his sister didn't like Shanann at all. And that caused a lot of friction between the family. And it also, the wedding was kind of in shambles. It really wasn't that picture perfect. The thing that you saw on the videos of on Facebook, um, there were some guests that were missing that should have been there that wasn't there. Chris's mom didn't show up to the wedding, and his sister didn't come to the wedding, and um, the only reason why they found this out was after the wedding was over. Shanann had called the people that weren't there, and apparently they didn't get the invitations that the sister was supposed to send out because she was helping Shanann with the invitations, and it didn't it didn't work out. That situation turned into a kerfuffle, and of course, judging by the way Sydney Watts was responding to the letter, it was almost like she didn't want to admit that part, but she admitted the conversation she had at the barbecue, but she didn't admit to the other stuff, which was fishy to me, but that's just me. Um, the other thing that also kind of shed light on the fact that um, Sydney didn't like her because she just felt that um, Shanann was taking her son from her and moving him to Colorado, and just being that mom, being that type of mom that just you know didn't really know how to let go and just let her son be happy, and that type of thing. Um, she also did talk about the peanut incident with Shanann. That was true. There was an incident where they did have a confrontation about it because Cece's deathly allergic to it. I mean, you kiss her or touch her after touching peanuts, and it's not good. Um, Shanann Nicole Atkinson and Kay, her best friend, had mentioned in her interview that Shanann would carry EpiPens and medicine for the girls all the time because the girls would have allergies or some type of thing, and plus Cece was allergic to some things. So, she would always have this big bag of stuff with her. Um, so that just went to show the severeness of how allergic Cece was to what she was allergic to, and how serious you have to really take that. And the fact that Shanann thought that Chris's mom was trying to kill her and all that or kill her daughter and all that type of stuff, which I honestly don't think that was her intention. She was like, I wasn't aware of the food allergy, which that could have been possible because they really didn't like each other, and I'm sure they didn't really talk much, but you would think that she would have known that, but who knows with that one. Um, the other thing that kind of caught me by surprise was the way Chris's mom and dad talked about Chris, that he was such a big car head, that he liked cars. He liked fixing cars and doing things with his dad to go on the car museums and all that type of stuff. And, um, just kind of talking about how he loved life, and painted this picture of a person that wasn't what he was now. And it's just really tragic that he went from this really great person, this really great guy, to this monster that he became, that came out of this box. And he wasn't the Chris Watts that people knew him. And, he put on this persona for so long that it finally just came out in the open. And And I think that was another thing that made this whole case tragic. And I think that's why people were drawn so much to, excuse me, sorry. Whew. I think that was why people were so drawn to NK's interview, Nicole Kessinger's interview, was not so much of the affair, was just so much of what she had to say about what it was like dating Chris Watts, their relationship, and did she know of this? Did she know of that? Was she aware of this? Was she not aware of this? So I think that's what made it so interesting. Um, in A's interview, which is Nicole Atkinson, to be quite honest, the detectives did have all the evidence, but without Nicole's interview and her statement that she gave to the detectives, Shannan and her unborn son and her two daughters would have not gotten the justice they deserve if it wasn't for her. Because if she wasn't as cooperative and as being concerned and as raising the red flag and knowing that there was something wrong with her friend, that something wasn't right, her best friend and her children wouldn't have gotten the justice they deserved. And you could tell in her interview that she was willing to give anything and everything to them. She talked about some of the situations that were talked about in the Netflix series. She talked about the trip she went on to Arizona and leading up to the murder. She also kind of talked about how she met Shannan and what Shannan's personality was like to her, how she described her best friend, and she talked about some of the frictions that were going on between the family and between her and Chris, and the marital issues, and that they were separating. She knew of that, but she just still didn't know what she had done wrong. She felt like she had tried everything, but she just couldn't figure out what happened. She thought it was Chris's parents and that was the reason for all of it, but that wasn't the truth. It was another person. And she had an inkling about it, but she just wasn't really fully 100% sure that that was the case. And the sad part is that she'll never fully know that that was the case. Chris said that she did know. Her father is a firm believer that her daughter's a fighter and that he did it while she was sleeping, because he said that he wouldn't have looked the way that he did if she wasn't sleeping. Um, there was another thing that I was looking up a while back too, where I was researching was I didn't realize that when somebody is choked when they're pregnant, of course there's gonna be blood because of the miscarriage, but I didn't know that there was other problems that would occur to show blood on a sheet or clothes. So I didn't know that. Plus, she was dragged into the desert, so of course, that could have been the other purposes for it. They also described how they went into more details as to how he put the girls in the tanks and some of the wounds that they found on the girls from being put in the tank and being pushed through the door. They interviewed the babysitter. The babysitter kind of talked about the night that Chris had went out with Nicole Kessinger and nobody knew about it. Apparently, the babysitter that babysitted the girls was a daughter to the boss that they worked for at a car dealership way back in the day. I think it was before they were married or anything like that. When they had worked for the car dealership and they got close to the daughter, and the daughter was a teenager, so she had watched the kids. She described it as her mother had dropped her off. This is in her own words, so to speak. Chris didn't come get her. She got a ride from her mom. She got dropped off at Chris's house. When she walked into the door, the girls were already in their nightgowns. She described what nightgowns they were wearing. Cece was wearing a blue nightgown with hearts and stars and it had glitter on it, and her sister was wearing the same thing, but it was pink with glitter on it, of course. Um, and that, and then when Chris was talking to her about some of the stuff to do, that he asked her what kind of pizza she liked, and he was ordering pizza for the girls and her so they would have dinner because he was going to a baseball game, um, and then he went out to dinner with Nicole. That was a date he was going on that nobody knew about. And there was also a statement that the babysitter had made that her father had asked um, Chris if he wanted to go to a Broncos game with them because the Denver Broncos were playing, but he turned him down because he already had tickets to a baseball game. And he was going with some more people, which that was a flat out lie. He was going with Nicole Kessinger. Hello. Um, she also mentioned that when the babysitter also mentioned that he told her that the girls had already had their medication and the bath and all that, and all she had to do was sit there and keep them entertained till about 7 and put them to bed. And this also goes to show how much he really cared for his kids and how much he really just wanted out of this whole thing, and why he did what he did. And he never texted once to check on his kids or the babysitter. The only person that did was Shannan, and she was out of state. She was always texting them, making sure that they were okay and making sure the babysitter was okay. She was checking on her girls. And that was also the same night or the night after she saw the bank statement, and there was $65 charge, which was different which was fishy because it should have only been $30, but they had to work up a lot to get that. So Nicole Kessinger was the reason for that bill being high, because he didn't have money to pay for it. He just paid for it with their bank card, and that's why it showed up. That also goes to show how financially difficult their times were, and why the house now will not sell, not just because of a murder that occurred. It's because of how much money you would be putting into that home, not just buying the home, but whatever league or whatever paperwork that you had to pay on the house too. So that house was just like full of debt. Some people think that some people are saying they should just knock it down and make it part. Some of them say it should stay up. It's kind of up in the air, but it's still there as far as I know. But yeah, it was a really tragic story, really tragic events, but that paints so much of a picture. Basically, he just did it to get what he wanted, to get out of a situation instead of just getting a divorce and doing the right thing, doing the considerable thing, and being the adult. He went and did what he did. Just to not only be with his mistress, he didn't want to have anything to do with the kids. Even when he was there visiting the family in that week that they went, that he flew out there because Shannan and them were going to see family in that towards the end of July for about like 3 weeks, and he flew out the last week to fly home with them. And even Shanann's parents could tell there was something going on and he wasn't right. Even they both could tell. Even Shanann's mother had asked her, she was like, honey, what's going on with them? Are you two okay? She even noticed it. Her friends started to notice it. Nicole Atkinson started to notice it because she was described an incident where she was with the kids and he didn't even say hi to her. And then she described the incident where she was going to check on her best friend because she was growing concerned because she was supposed to go to a doctor's appointment. It was the day she got murdered. And she was talking about a door incident, and he was frustrated with her. You could tell he just didn't care until one of the friends called and just literally yelled at him, say, hey, your wife is missing. You need to go deal with this shit. Excuse me for saying that, but you need to go deal with it, in her words. Excuse me for saying that, but yeah. It was like she was just like yelling and being that friend of like, you need to go take care of this stuff, you know? You just can't really sit there and not act like you care about it. Like, you have to do it. So, that was that. And then she also talked about the conversation she had when Chris was coming home and that he was 45 minutes away. And, she kind of talked also about his body language when in her interview about how he was, and you know even the police kind of talked about his body language and all that. So how I feel about the case is he definitely was a manipulator. He definitely did put on a persona. He definitely was an interviewer, and maybe at the time he did love Shannan. He did want kids. He did want to be a father at the time. Maybe that was what was going through his head at the time. But I think after that incident with the ice cream and, just little things started to become bigger things, and the bigger things just made the whole marriage worse, and it made it sour, and it made it to where Chris was unwilling to fix it. She wanted to fix it, but he was unwilling to fix it. It was one-way emotions, no matter what Shannan would have done. And that's the sad situation. And that's what ultimately led up to what happened. Now, as to actually the reasons why he did it, who knows? But we only know from the evidence and from the interviews that he did it to just be with his mistress to get what he wanted. And, that was that. Is that totally the truth? I don't know. It might be some of the truth, but that's what they got. That's what they could gather from the evidence and from what had happened. So and they also kind of talked about why the social media people went after the parents was because of the fact that because of the fact that Chris was shining the light on her the way that he was. That's why the social media went that way. And that was farther from the truth. And that's why Shannan's father made the statement he made. But anyway, so that's that. I hope you guys took a lot out of today's episode. I hope you guys got a little bit more of the light shed on the whole situation. It was definitely a tragic case. It was definitely a case of, I wouldn't necessarily say it was a domestic violence case, but you could definitely tell it was one of those cases of a form of a marriage gone sour and it ending in murder type thing. And you could definitely tell that. But anyways, if you haven't hit the red subscribe button, hit the red subscribe button and the notification bell so you'll be notified as to when I upload videos in the future. Also, if you haven't checked out the description box, go check it out because all my social medias are listed in that description box, as well as my old second channel that has episodes 1 through 8 on there. Go check those out. Also, look forward to the next couple of episodes of Jessie's Hangout. The next one is hopefully going to be The Conjuring 3. We'll see. I got so many other things that I want to put out there. But anyways, I hope you guys have an awesome afternoon, morning, day, or night, wherever you're watching this from. And I will catch you all in my next episode. Later.